Completing the square, pre-college math. This we did in Algebra 2 trigonometry, but it's been a little while, so it's definitely worth it to review, much like the transformations in the previous video. So let's go through the steps. So solve for x by completing the square. Now, completing the square is not a formula. It is a process, a step-by-step process. The quadratic formula is a formula where you plug in things. Completing the square is just a process. You need to remember what to do. And the first thing to remember is you cannot have a number in front of x squared. So a must, let me write that a little bit more clearer. A, we know we call this a, and this we call b, and this we call c. So a must equal 1. So if there's a number in front of x squared that's not a 1, and when it is a 1, we don't write it. So if you see any number here, 2 or 3, a negative 5, whatever, that needs to be divided away first step. So first thing is a must equal 1. So I'm going to divide that away. So if I divide everything by 2 here, so if I divide everything by 2, I end up with x squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0. And the reason I could just divide it away is because I divided on both sides, and 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So it's gone, and now I'm working with the term where a equals 1, and I'm good to go. Next thing you do, step 2, is you move the constant, or you set equal to c. Now our c term is negative 12, and we need to move that to the other side. And, well, I'm sorry, it was negative 12. Now it's negative 6. This is our c term now. Right, a is now 1, b is 4, and c is negative 6. That needs to be moved to the other side. So I'm going to set it as x squared minus 4x equals 6. And I move it to the other side by adding 6 to both sides, right? I can't just move a negative 6. You got to do some opposite operation to move it to the other side. So now it is set equal to the constant. C stands for constant here. It's the number without a variable. See, A has an x squared attached to it, B has an x attached to it, C, it's just a number. It's constantly 6. And so we set it equal to the constant. Whatever that number C is, you move that over. But that comes after dividing anything here. And there's not always a number here, but if it is, divide it away. Step 3 is the really unique part here. It's b divided by 2 squared. We add b divided by 2 squared on both sides. And that's really the unique part to completing the square. And it is a little bit of a formula, I suppose. So b, as we said, is this negative 4 here. So x squared minus 4x plus something, and 6 plus something, and that something comes from b divided by 2 squared. Now, it doesn't matter that it's negative because it's going to square positive either way, but negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, squared is positive 4. So whatever this number here is, cut it in half and square it. Divide it by 2 and square it. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4, so it works out to be 4. But it's always positive. It's always plus something because of the squaring part. Squaring always makes things positive, so it will never subtract something on both sides for that step. All right, then step 4 is to factor slash simplify, and the left side is now what we call a square trinomial. That's why it's called completing the square, because factoring this, it would factor to x minus 2 and x minus 2. But instead of writing it as the same thing twice, we write it as x minus 2 squared. That's the same thing. And simplifying the right, just simplify what this is over here. 6 plus 4 is 10. So that's factoring the left, simplifying the right. Now, one shortcut that's worth pointing out is when you're factoring this stuff over here, it ends up being your b divided by 2 is what goes here. So by negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and it's that in parentheses squared. But it's also, you could just, if you know how to factor trinomials, which you all do, that's how we're getting that. Then step 5 is to square root both sides. And don't forget the plus or minus. So square rooting both sides. The square root of x minus 2 squared is x minus 2. And what I have over here, the square root of 10, we're going to leave as the square root of 10, but I have to remember to put a very important plus or minus in front of it. So when I square root both sides, I have to use a plus or minus in front of that right side radical. And that's big because that's what gets us two answers. And if you remember the quadratic formula, it's negative b plus or minus the radical. That's where that plus or minus needs to come in. Because we could do quadratic formula here and get the same answer. It's just another process. But you need that plus or minus because there's two roots. And then the last and final step is to solve for x. And that is going to require me to add 2 to both sides. And I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That number, and what's important to hear is that this add, whatever number you move over, that's got to go in front of the plus or minus. So my final answer is x equals 2, the number I'm moving over, I'm adding 2 to both sides, then the plus or minus rad 10. And you need to make sure this is in simplest form, so we look at that radical 10 and say, can it be reduced? If it's negative, I'm going to get something imaginary, but you know that we've talked about that in several topics before. So that is it. One more time, I want to run through it. If there's a number in front of x squared, divide it away, because a must be 1. Then move your constant to the other side, set it equal to that. Add b divided by 2 squared on both sides. Factor that to a square binomial, simplify that. Square root both sides, don't forget the plus or minus. And then lastly, move the number away from x to the other side in front of that plus minus. Let me show you a couple of quick examples of some of the problems you're going to see. This is a couple of quick multiple choice ones. Here, this is like in the process of completing the square. They want to know, what do I add to both sides? Well, that's the whole b divided by 2 squared part. So b is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 6 squared is 36. So you'd add 36 to both sides. Never going to be negative what you add to both sides, not that step. This one is basically saying which of these is a partial step to this. All right, so let's see here. First thing, this needs to stand out, a number in front of x squared. So if I divide by 3 everywhere, I get x squared plus 12 divided by 3 is 4x. But then I get 10 divided by 3. And we are going to be dealing with a lot of fractions in pre-calculus. Don't panic. Don't freak out. It's okay. They're just numbers. We have calculators. But we're going to see fractions sometimes. No big deal. All right, next thing we need to do is move. This is our c term, our constant. So we need to move it to the other side, making it x squared plus 4x equals negative 10 thirds. Still not seeing that there. Then we do our b divided by 2 squared, so it'll be x squared plus 4x plus, now here's our b term, divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared again is 4. So I'm looking at 10 over 3 plus 4. All right, almost there, still not there, but I got to factor simplify. This factors to x plus 2, so we do x plus 2 squared. And now what is 10 over 3 plus 4? Well, we have a calculator, and I think most of you are going to use it. So it would be, you want to do your fractions in parentheses, so 10 divided by 3, close the parentheses, plus 4. I do not want decimals, so math double enter, 22 over 3. And I believe that's all they wanted here. No, that's not, we're not done. I think that's what they were shooting for here, but I don't see that. I'm guessing there's a typo somewhere in here. Let's pretend this is supposed to be a plus, and then that would be our answer. But that's about it. I could do square both sides, but that's as far as I want to go with this. Did I have to use a calculator for that? No. You could have turned this, 4 into over 1, and I want it to be over 3, so multiply top and bottom by 3, making it 12 over 3 plus 10 over 3 is 22 over 3. Common denominator to add things, but your calculator will do it for you. And That's an, oh wait, I just spotted it. Some of you were probably saying, Mr. Grover, you dropped the negative sign on the 10. Yes, that is a negative 10 over 3 plus 4. So this is not correct. This is not correct. Negative 10 over 3 plus 4. All right, let's try that. Negative 10 divided by 3 plus 4. Almost got me. That is 2/3. So that's what we were looking for, was that one. So you got to be careful not to drop any signs. That'll definitely affect the problems. All right, see ya. See ya.